Welcome back, sophomores. This webcast is about challenges in post-colonial Africa. And by post-colonial, I mean after imperialism. So after the European imperialists left, what did Africa look like? The main idea you should take away today is that although African countries gained their independence, which is clearly a good thing, they still face many problems today as a direct result of imperialism. The first problem we'll look at are political problems. When European imperialists left Africa, they did not help establish stable governments. This meant that power-hungry, greedy leaders could take over. It also led to many military takeovers, which meant that the strongest, not necessarily the best, leader would be in power. It also led to many harsh dictators. One of the most famous is Idi Amin. He was the president of Uganda from 1971 to 79. He was so ruthless that he was known as the Butcher of Uganda. Numerous human rights violations occurred under his rule, and he was responsible for anywhere from 100,000 to 500,000 killings. It's hard to know the exact number. Next, there were economic problems. Many nations in Africa rely on cash crops. A cash crop means relying on only one or maybe a few crops to support the economy. If that crop fails, though, the economy is in a lot of trouble. Additionally, that means that these nations are not producing what they need, such as manufactured goods, clothes, cars, things like that, and food, and that means they have to import those products. Coffee is a common cash crop in Africa. But think about it. One, you can't eat coffee, you can't wear coffee, so you're going to need to buy those things. And then two, if the prices of coffee drop, well, then you're in a lot of trouble, and that's what happens in a lot of African countries. Additionally, there are many ethnic tensions. If you remember from the Scramble for Africa, the borders of Africa were drawn by Europeans without regard to the tribes living there. You can see clearly in this map, the red lines indicate tribal lines and the black lines indicate national borders. They don't match up at all. Ethnic tribes are separated into different nations. Additionally, tribes who might not get along are forced to be in the same nation. Loyalty to one's tribe, which is called tribalism, is often stronger than loyalty to one's nation. Tribalism and the tensions between these different tribes have led to many horrible conflicts in Africa. In Nigeria, more than 200 ethnic groups are clustered into the borders of Nigeria. This has led to fighting between the Muslim Hausa and Fulani people and the Christian Igbo and Yoruba people. In 1966, 20,000 Igbo were massacred. The Hausa were the people who controlled the government at the time. The next year, Igbo declared its region independent, calling it Biafra. This led to a civil war that lasted for several years, resulting in the death of nearly 1 million people due to either the war or starvation. Another ethnic conflict that you've probably heard of is the Rwandan genocide. Before 1994, 85% of Rwanda was Hutu, and 14% were Tutsi. In 1994, Hutu extremists, backed by the government, began to murder Tutsis in large numbers. More than 500,000 were killed in a few months. The genocide ended when the Tutsi-led rebel army took control of the government, but there were deaths on both sides, and many Hutus were killed as well. Rwanda is still trying to recover from this horrible genocide. However, there were definitely positive changes that have taken place in the last 5 or so decades in Africa. The African Union formed in 2002. It was a federation of 15 countries, which means basically a group of 53 countries. Its goal is to solve economic, social, political, and environmental problems in Africa. It deals with issues such as desertification, which is the process of good farming land turning into desert, as well as AIDS and famine. The group also works to stop conflicts, to try and stop genocides like what happened in Rwanda. Additionally, many African nations have moved from socialist to free market economies, leading to economic growth. Some nations have expanded mining, manufacturing, and industry to take better advantage of their natural resources so that they can produce everything that they need and don't have to rely on imports. Additionally, there's a lot of improved transportation and communication. So while the history of post-colonial Africa is certainly tragic in many ways, African countries are moving in a direction of progress and growth.